It was late on a quiet Sunday night in a small neighborhood in Queens, New York. Scott was walking down the street, keenly observing the last people of the night. She's probably no more than 15. What is she doing out at this time? And with him? Come on, we'll have some fun and I'll drop you home again. Alright, let's go. Bad choice. Scott walked along, noticing another woman. She was wearing heavy makeup, high stilettos. She looked back at him and smirked. Need some company? Not tonight, beautiful. So she's here for business. Right around the curb, Scott's eye fell upon two men as they met each other and sneakily snuck a small package into the other's hand. Who could it be? As he walked further on towards the closed park, late at night, these parks became almost a safe haven for criminals to deal or hide. But tonight, it was eerily empty. Scott turned, hearing a car drive up not too far behind him. A young woman stepped out, talking on her phone as she took out her groceries. Finally got a day off, Cindy. I'm just gonna open a bottle of wine and relax all by myself. Scott scanned her from head to toe. From her watch and the diamond locket around her neck, he could tell she was well off. But for a woman like her to be out so late in a place like this was unexpected. Scott was planning to follow up and perhaps talk, but before he would take his first step toward her, the woman turned to look at him. Excuse me, mister. Would you mind helping me out? These are really heavy. My house is just down the block. With a shallow smile, Scott nodded and took the woman's bag. Just a few houses down the empty road, the woman stopped in front of a neatly maintained house. Thank you for all the help. No problem. With that, Scott headed back. But as he reached near her car again, he noticed a purse on the ground. Opening it up, he found her ID. Connie McCain, 24 years old. Scott turned back to her house and knocked on the door, but there was no answer. With a second knock, suddenly the door creaked open. Excuse me, miss, you dropped your purse outside. Scott slowly stepped into the house. He could hear her hum. Can she not hear me? Scott was about to drop the purse and leave. But he suddenly got a whiff of a horrible stench coming from the hall. Curious, Scott walked down the hall as the stench got stronger, until he reached a bedroom. Is anyone there? He stepped inside a dimly lit room. The odor was horrendous, but just as Scott was to look around for its source, the door behind him forcefully shut closed. It couldn't have been the wind. The windows in this room were sealed. Scott tried to open the door, but to his surprise, it was locked shut. Did she just lock me in? Is anyone out there? Open the door! Open the door! But all Scott heard was the sound of footsteps and a faint laughter. Shocked, he immediately took out his multi-tool and tried to pick the lock. But nearly half an hour passed, and it seemed he was getting nowhere. I should let the others know. Scott took out his phone. There was no network. He then took out his wireless, but he couldn't get a signal. And in all this, The dim light above his head flickered off. Damn. Scott knew this was no accident. He was trapped here. Begging for help was not a solution. Taking out his lighter, Scott neared the windows and tried to look for weak spots. There were grills attached on the other side, so he wouldn't be able to get out unless he saw it through. Nonetheless, Scott gripped onto his multi-tool and hit the glass. He did once, twice, thrice, but there was not a scratch to be seen. What is going on? Why is this not breaking? Scott tried to build up momentum and threw his body against the wooden door. But even then, it wouldn't budge. After numerous attempts to escape, Scott only exhausted himself to no use. As the hours passed by, Scott started to feel lightheaded. He looked around as the room began to spin around him. Scott fell to the ground, feeling absolutely imbalanced. What is happening to me? Suddenly, Scott was startled as the walls seemed as if they were caving in on him. The room was becoming smaller. And just seconds later, the walls were spread so wide apart, Scott felt he was nothing in its comparison. He could no longer hear the faint noise of the traffic from outside, nor the wind, nothing. But his breath increasing by the second. Scott held his throat, unable to breathe, as he gasped. His vision started to become blurry in front of him. As he collapsed to the ground, laying on the floor, Scott shivered as a freezing temperature encompassed him. And he suddenly saw a figure, someone approaching him. Gathering all his strength, Scott weakly pulled himself up and reached out. "Who's there?" But it was almost immediately. Everything went to how it had been. Scott sat there terrified in the darkness, unable to understand what he experienced. He got up to check the door, but with one step, one of the wooden planks broke through as Scott's foot went underneath, touching something soft and wet. What is this? Scott lit his lighter and slowly pried his foot out of the hole before he tore off the wooden plank. The horrendous odor oozed out as Scott lowered the lighter closer. Can't be. There, under the wooden planks, was the decomposing body of Connie McCain. A few months ago, on a quiet Sunday night like tonight, Connie McCain had gone out to run some errands. She planned to spend the night at rest all to herself, but what she didn't know was that night would be her last night. As Connie struggled to carry her groceries back to the house, a man approached her. "Let me help you." "No, it's all right." "Please, I insist." As the man grabbed onto her bags, Connie reluctantly accepted the help. "All right, my house is just down the block. Thank you so much." "Don't mention it." As Connie innocently went along, she didn't realize the man had pickpocketed her purse. But this wasn't to be his jackpot. He had bigger plans with her. Dropping off her groceries, the man let her be and went off. And just an unsuspicious while later, he returned knocking on her door. Connie saw the man through her camera and turned on the telecom. "Can I help you?" "No, it's just that you dropped your purse outside. I came to return it." It was quite late at night, and Connie didn't want to allow anyone in. "Just leave it in the mailbox, and thank you again." Connie then watched as the man dropped her purse in the mailbox and left. And when the coast was clear, she opened the door to get her purse. Phew. These men, when they find a girl alone, they just won't leave them. Taking her purse, Connie went back in, safe and secure, and locked the door. But the minute she turned, she was horrified to see the man standing right behind her. "You? How did you get in?" "Because I'm you." Cheryl. She was no woman, nor man. She was no human being. Cheryl was among the creatures of the night. She had strength, speed, no man could compare to. But she also had something even other creatures like her couldn't compete with. Cheryl could shapeshift and read minds. Once every week, she traveled at night searching for a potential victim for her next hunt, to satisfy her hunger and thirst. Sometimes she fooled men, and sometimes women, and sometimes whatever she could get her hands on. And after she had gotten what she wanted from them, Cheryl cunningly disposed of the remains to lead the police to assume a serial killing had been taking place in the neighborhood and rid herself of any suspicion. And the BIIPD fell into the hoax, as many people were suddenly going missing and later found lifeless in horrible conditions, sometimes in the woods or by the lakeside. The BIIPD began investigating. They realized one common factor among the deaths were that it took place every Friday night and in a certain area. Thus, they suspected it was the work of a serial killer. So they assigned undercover officer Scott Brown on the case. Officer Scott had been patrolling the neighborhood at night, observing the people, searching for potential culprits and potential victims. When he saw Connie, he had not suspected her as a culprit. But Connie, or Cheryl in her disguise, had read his mind. So he's an undercop. He's on to me. Figured out my location too. "Sorry, officer. Looks like tonight will be your night." Cheryl intentionally dropped her purse, knowing the innocent officer would return to give it back to her. And once she baited him to her, she locked him in the room where he could suffer and die. But there was something even Cheryl was not aware of. As she had taken the form of Connie, she had buried the remains of Connie McCain in the house, where no one would find her, and no one would know she was no more. But Connie's spirit became trapped there. And when Officer Scott fell into the same situation, she haunted him as a means of finding her freedom. Scott stepped back, shocked to see the body of Connie McCain. How can this be? Is this the truth? If Connie McCain's body is here, the woman I saw outside can't be her. She's something else. But will anyone believe me? Scott looked at the door, gripping onto his multi-tool. He couldn't quit. He needed to get out of here. Officer Ruth Jameson, Scott's partner, had been patrolling another region of the neighborhood when she suddenly lost Scott's signal. When she was unable to contact him, she felt concerned and immediately reported to the precinct. as she went out in search for him. Officer Scott's last signal had been outside a certain street before he simply went offline. Where could he go? It was almost 3 a.m. when the rain began to pour. Ruth reached the lonely dark street and parked her car. She walked to the exact point in the rain, suddenly shouting out as she noticed a figure ahead of her. As she neared closer, she realized it was Scott. Scott, you're here? I've been looking for you the whole night. You got the whole team so concerned. What happened? My wireless wasn't working for some reason. Thunder rumbled in the air as the rain fell heavier. Looks like there's going to be a storm. Aren't you heading home? I'll take a walk. All right. Finally. What are you? As for now, Officer Scott Brown. Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting.